This is pretty much a niche lightning talk, but that's okay. The long-belated, long-delayed extension to do format modifiers correctly in Vulkan is right around the corner. It got merged yesterday into Kronos's internal master branch for this specification. So it's due to be released in the next weekly spec release, which should be later today, West Coast time, with one caveat I'll get back to later. But before the spec release happens, or if you want to look at the HTML, which, here's my website. I have a little status page for the format modifier extension. There it is. Also, revalue implementation for Intel today. Doesn't build yet. It's still rebasing, but it's on the way. So, very quickly. Where'd it go? Oh no. Bring that back. Wanted to show something about the specification. Okay, this resolution's different. I'll work with it. This is the Vulkan spec, and this is the appendix for the extension itself. And as part of developing this extension, one reason why it took so long is I had to have extensive conversations with the driver teams of the proprietary drivers, particularly Mali and NVIDIA, to guarantee that this extension and modifiers, Vulkan's really low level. With EGL, driver vendors can do a lot of magic behind the scenes to make things work. They don't really get as much opportunity to do workaround magic in Vulkan, so the API really needs to expose what the hardware is doing more closely. So a lot of conversations with Mali and NVIDIA to make sure everything here works for them, and I think we got an extension that is near optimal for most use cases, and that doesn't limit any functionality at all. Hardware should be able to expose directly everything they can do. Even compressed YUV should work fine with this extension. It works with multiple memory planes for each image, or if your image contains all the memory planes interleaved into one, supports all of that. And I'm pointing out the summary here because I found it's useful. Since I had to educate people who had no experience in open source graphics, really, what modifiers were, what the story is about, what the problems were we were trying to solve, why this stuff had to be so difficult compared to Android. Why can't we just hide everything in Hardware Composer and Graalvm and call it done? As part of the education effort, I had to write a lot of PowerPoint slides that I'm not going to bore you with, but there's a summary here that describes the theory of format modifiers, the use cases, how they work, what they do, why they're different from Android, and all this discussion is really Vulkan independent. It's really generic. So if you need to explain modifiers to somebody or bring somebody up on them, I think this appendix is really useful, even if you don't care about Vulkan at all. There's almost no Vulkan in this appendix. In particular, there's one paragraph I want to point out, then move to the next page, running out of time. This is really the key graph. I vetted this with Daniel Vetter to make sure he agreed, and this is like the main thing. And this was the main point of confusion in education. Modifiers don't enumerate all possible timely else on your system. Modifiers describe commonly useful ones that should be used for interchange. Anyway, the extension has three main use cases. It's designed for format modifier negotiation for compositors and their clients. And then, of course, clients and compositors need to import and export their modifiers. And the summary explains how the extension should be used, because the API is kind of hairy. It's not obvious from looking at the header. Next page. Okay, got it. Not there. Here's the header. This is on my CGIT. Again, if you want to look at the API's here. That's the full API, actually. It's very, oh no, the resolution's different. There's like another 20 lines. There we go. That's the full API. And that's it. And I think I'm over time. So, thank you.